Hi, hello guys, how are you all? Hi, hello skizos, how are you all? ஸோ இன்றைக்கி நம்ம நியூஸ் ரேக் பண்ண போகிறோம். பட் ஆனால் சாதாரண ஏதோ ஒரு நியூஸ் ரேக் கிடையாது. இஸ்ரேல் அண்ட் ஈரான் ரெண்டு பேர் நடக்கிற கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட் ஒன்று போயிட்டு இருந்துச்சு. நீங்கள் நியூஸில் பார்த்துருப்பீங்க. பார்க்காதவங்களுக்கு தான் இது மெயினான விஷயம். சின்ஸ் இட்ஸ் ஆல்ரெடி கம் டு பொசிஷன் ஆஃப் சீஸ் ஃபயர், வி ஹேவ் டு அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் த ஓவரால் கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட். முதல்ல இதோட ஜியோ பாலிட்டிக்ஸ் என்ன, முதல்ல இஸ்ரேல் யார், பாலஸ்தீன் யார், அவங்களுக்குள்ள இருக்க கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட் என்ன, அண்ட் அது எப்படி இப்போ இந்த பர்டிகுலர் விண்டோ பீரியடில் எப்படி அது இஸ்ரேல் விசஸ் ஈரான்னு மாறிச்சு, ஏன் யூஎஸ் நடுவில் வந்துச்சு, இது மாதிரி பல கேள்விகள் இருக்குது, பல பெர்ஸ்பெக்டிவ்ஸ் இருக்குது. முதல்ல நியூஸ் மீடியா என்னவா ரிப்போர்ட் பண்ணுச்சுங்கிறத முதல்ல பார்ப்போம். அண்ட் தென் வில் கெட் டு அவர் பொலிட்டிக்கல் பார்ட்னர் கிராக். அதுக்கிட்ட நம்ம எல்லாத்தையும் கேட்டு எல்லா கான்ஃப்ளிக்ஸ் அண்ட் ஹிஸ்ட்ரிஸ், யார் சைடில் என்ன இஷ்யூ, எதுக்காக, என்ன ரீசன், அவங்களே வேலிடேட் பண்ணிட்டாங்க, எல்லாத்தையும் நம்ம கேட்டு பார்ப்போம். ஃபர்ஸ்ட், ஹவு மீடியா கவர்ட் இட். லெட்ஸ் கெட் ஸ்ட்ரெயிட் டு த ஷோ. இதெல்லாம் 1 year முன்னாடி வந்த வீடியோவா இது? ஓகே அதான் சொல்கிறாங்க, தட் ஏஜ் ரியலி வெல். ரைட். இதுதான் அந்த ஃபஸ்ட்டு இது. ஒய் இஸ்ரேலி பாலஸ்தீன் கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட் இஸ் ஸோ ஹார்ட் டு ரிசால்வ், மேப்ட் அவுட்னு சொல்லிட்டு 1 year முன்னாடி வந்திருக்கு. பார்த்துருவோம் வாங்க. திஸ் இஸ் த ட்ரிகரிங் மூமெண்ட். இதுக்கப்புறம் தான் எல்லா கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட்டுமே வந்துச்சு. So,
if you want to drive from Tel Aviv almost to the end of the West Bank, it's supposed to take you less than an hour and a half. But this pops up on the map. This route may cross country borders. That makes sense. According to international law, this is a Palestinian territory. But Israel maintains the West Bank is disputed territory and often calls it Judea and Samaria, in reference to the region's Jewish history. This tiny piece of land is home to possibly the most complex conflict in the world, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And it escalated further in early October 2023 when militants from the Palestinian terrorist group Hamas crossed into Israeli territory, killed people, took hostages. Israel reacted with massive airstrikes on Hamas, which also killed civilians and displaced hundreds of thousands more. And it's not only a regional conflict. The whole world seems somehow involved. Your own government may be part of trying to negotiate a peace agreement. Part of your taxes may go to humanitarian aid in the region or weapons. And everyone seems to have an opinion on it. The conflict has a long history of wars, of violence, oppression, and failed peace negotiations. That has left many people hopeless. And yes, with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's hard to know where to start. We won't have time to look into every detail, such as all the international players involved. That's why we want to focus on the solutions that have been proposed over the years and find out what the sticking points are. This is Israel, shown here in solid blue, the only majority Jewish country in the world. It was established to offer Jewish people a safe haven in their historic homeland, which many saw as essential after Germany's systematic murder of more than 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. Israel has a population of around 10 million. About a fifth of its citizens are Arabs of Palestinian origin. Then there are the Palestinian territories. More than 3 million Palestinians live in the West Bank. It has been under Israeli military occupation since 1967 and is partly governed by Fatah, a Palestinian political party. Then there's the Gaza Strip, which is controlled by the terror group Hamas. The entire population of Gaza has been living under blockade for more than 15 years, which rights groups say is illegal, but Israel says is necessary for its safety. And there's Jerusalem. But we'll get to that in a bit because there's really a lot to unpack. Basically, the conflict is about land and who has the right to it. But how can this decades-long conflict be solved? The most talked about idea is a two-state solution, an Israeli state and a Palestinian state that would recognize each other and coexist in peace. To dig deeper, we'll take a short trip to the history of the two-state idea. In 1947, Britain wanted to end its control of the region. The UN proposed a partition plan, which would have divided historic Palestine between Arabs and Jews. The Jews accepted it, the Arabs didn't. Israel then declared its independence in 1948. and was attacked by a coalition of Arab nations. Israel won and gained and didn't. Israel then declared its independence in 1948 and was attacked by a coalition of Arab nations. Israel won and gained territory. During the war and the foundation of Israel, an estimated 750,000 Palestinians fled or were driven out of the new state. Palestinians remember this as the Nakba, or catastrophe. Israel and neighboring Arab nations who said they were supporting the Palestinians fought many more wars since then, changing the map multiple times. The first face-to-face peace agreements between Israel and the Palestinians came in the 1990s, in what's known as the Oslo Accords. This handshake kicked off years of intense negotiations over a possible two-state solution. Here's Nimrod Rosler. He's the head of the International Program in Conflict Resolution and Mediation at the Tel Aviv University.
That was the point of time where there was a peak for hope for peace among both sides.
And they got really close to a solution at Camp David in 2000, but ultimately didn't make it. So, hang on a second, there was never a final peace treaty? Why? Let's take a look at some of the sticking points. Here's the first one: Jerusalem. It's a city sacred to the major monotheistic religions. To Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Jews gathered to pray here at the Western Wall, the only remains of their ancient temple, the holiest site in Judaism. For Muslims, the very same site is considered the third holiest place in Islam, because the Prophet Muhammad is said to have transcended to heaven from the spot where the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock is situated now, known to Jews as the Temple Mount. And because this place is so holy to both Jews and Muslims, it's a trigger for both sides and the scene of tensions and provocation. All that's because the state of Jerusalem is so disputed. Israel occupied the Palestinian part of Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, during the 1967 war, ultimately annexing East Jerusalem in 1980. Israel sees the whole of Jerusalem as its eternal, undivided capital. What does that mean in the present? Imagine you're a Palestinian who was born in East Jerusalem. You might feel Palestinian, but cannot have Palestinian documents. And you generally also don't have Israeli citizenship, which makes daily life difficult. For example, your residency status can be revoked, which can eventually lead to the loss of healthcare and even the right to enter Jerusalem. We mentioned that Jews gather at the Western Wall, but it's not only that. Jerusalem is the holiest city for Jews, and the most significant sites for Jews are located in East Jerusalem, which is why Israel wants to hold on to the whole city. But to the Palestinians, East Jerusalem is the capital of a future Palestinian state. That's been essential to proposals for a two-state solution, and most of the international community supports the idea. So it looks like a deadlock here. This is peace advocate and Palestinian East Jerusalem resident Adeb Jude. He argues that because Jerusalem is so special, it cannot be divided.
احنا بدنا دولتين كل دولة تعيش بأمن وأمان. هذا اللي احنا نطمع له. نطمع بأنه القدس تكون مفتوحة للجميع. القدس هي ملك للجميع، ملك لجميع الديانات.
Jerusalem leads us to the next contentious area, the West Bank, the largest Palestinian territory. The number of Jewish settlers here and in East Jerusalem has continued to rise since Israel captured the territories in 1967. The settlers are living here illegally according to international law. Why did that happen? Many settlers argue with religion. For Jews, the West Bank is home to many sacred places. Others are here for benefits like cheaper housing. And there's the political level. The West Bank has a strategic meaning for Israel. Israel sees it as a buffer zone to defend itself against any attack from the east.
Ooh.
That's one reason why the Israeli government actively supports these settlements and sends soldiers to secure them. Many Israelis are against the settlements, but the recent Netanyahu government has stepped up its settlement policies. Over the last 2 decades, the number of Israeli settlers living in the West Bank has increased to over 700,000, if you also count settlers in East Jerusalem. Remember, 3 million Palestinians live here. In theory, Israel has said it wants a two-state solution, but the illegal settlements in the West Bank make it less likely to happen. Take this Israeli settlement in the West Bank, administered by Israeli authorities. On the other side of the street, a Palestinian neighborhood in Ramallah al-Bire, administered by Palestinian authorities. This example really shows just how intertwined the situation is. A two-state solution would mean Israel at least partly withdrawing from the West Bank and giving up that territory for a Palestinian state. And we haven't even talked about Gaza. The humanitarian situation in Gaza was already dire, even before the October escalation.
Whoa.
According to the UN, the Israeli blockade of Gaza and its 2.3 million inhabitants has led to extreme poverty and very high unemployment rates. Nearly 80% of Gaza residents rely on humanitarian aid. And by the way, Egypt also participates in the blockade, controlling movements in and out of Gaza from its border with the Strip. Usually, in proposals for a two-state solution, Gaza was going to be part of an independent Palestinian state. But in 2006, the militant Islamist Hamas was elected in Palestinian territories. 1 year later, it took complete control of the Gaza Strip. It is deemed a terrorist organization by the EU and the US, and is responsible for multiple terror attacks. Hamas doesn't accept Israel's right to exist. For Pnina Baruch, a security researcher and former colonel in the Israeli army, peace negotiations are only possible once Hamas is disarmed.
You have to beat Hamas, you have to take away its military capabilities, and then hopefully they will be too weak to continue to control the Gaza Strip. I believe that the Fatah, we could do business with the Fatah.
Just a reminder, Fatah is the main Palestinian political party in the West Bank. Fatah and Hamas are rivals. Fatah recognizes Israel's right to exist, Hamas doesn't. Civilians in Gaza are suffering under the rule of Hamas too. And yet, Israel's siege, the bombing and killing has led many to believe that for Israel, it's not just a war on Hamas, but on the Palestinians. Although Israel insists it tries to minimize civilian casualties.
في الإجماع الدولي بحل القضية الفلسطينية إعطاء حق التقرير المصير للشعب الفلسطيني.
This is Amjad Shihab. He's a political scientist based in East Jerusalem. What he's talking about here reflects what many Palestinians are thinking. The conflict can only come to a resolution when the rights of Palestinians are respected. Some people say Palestinian rights would be more respected in a one-state solution. There are different kinds of one-state solutions that are being discussed. One idea is a unitary state, meaning one democratic state where both Israelis and Palestinians have equal rights. Another idea could be a federal state, in which Jewish and Palestinian regions would have wide-ranging powers. Or a confederation would involve two territories with open borders, with a joint Israeli-Palestinian government responsible only for a few issues, such as foreign trade and external security. Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, put it on the table on a political level when he talked about it in 2021, to put pressure on the Israeli government.
ستفرض المعطيات والتطورات على الأرض الحقوق السياسية الكاملة والمتساوية للجميع على أرض فلسطين التاريخية في دولة واحدة وفي كل الأحوال على إسرائيل أن تقطع.
But let's remember what we talked about earlier. In all of the official peace negotiations, the only proposed solutions were two-state solutions. Ideas for a one-state solution have always been just ideas.
My analysis, even before what happened,
She's talking about the Hamas October 2023 terrorist attack.
Was that none of them work because of this immense hostility that exists and this friction that will lead eventually to violence. And I think now it's just strengthened my opinion that a one state with open borders is not something that will work.
And yet, support for a two-state solution has fallen on both sides. So, will Israel and the Palestinians ever agree on a way out of the cycle of violence and trauma? For now, it seems the only thing people can agree on is that peace is still out of reach.
بدون أي حل سياسي يعتمد على القوانين الدولية، يعتمد على القرارات الدولية، يعتمد على حقوق الإنسان، لا أعتقد بأن الأمور ستنتهي.
In order to continue to live here, we have to find a solution to the conflict. It has to be on both sides. But I believe it will be very difficult, and therefore there has to be also an international support.
கிட்டத்தட்ட வார் ஆஃப் ரிலீஜன் மாதிரி தான் இருக்குது கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட்டு. I am Polish when our neighboring country attackers divided our land. Among them, in 18th century, we disappeared from the map for 100 years. We lived under the occupation of 3 different countries at once. We fought back and we are on map again. They apologized, their wounds are still, but we live in a relative peace. The problem is that there is a lack of trust on both sides. Peace comes when both sides want it. Thanks for trying to present the topic without emotional polarization. It's brave to leave the comment sections open. This is basically what happens when a blood feud reaches the national scale. Even if they reach a ceasefire agreement, a splinter group that really hits the other party would emerge and strike the other one. Regardless of the collateral damage, the other party would strike back, causing collateral damage as well, fanning the flames. When a man meets an obstacle he can't destroy, he destroys himself. Wow! If you need a more equilibrated video, thank you. Militants, no terrorist video discredited as soon as it started. Solution might be complex, but the conflict itself isn't. There was a land with the people in it. Another people wanted that land, and with the help of a great power, went and took it by force, expelling its original population and instilling an apartheid regime against those who were allowed to stay. Hamas doesn't accept Israel's right to exist. Well, isn't that exactly the same as Israel to its Palestine? Hamas and Israel are the same, both target civilians, kill children, take hostages and violate international law. Why only Hamas is deemed as a terrorist organization? Wow. Most Palestinians are Jordanians or Saudi Arabians. There is no such a ethnicity as Palestinian. Equal rights for all regardless of race, religion, gender. இதுக்கு தான் குளோபல் சிட்டிசன் ஆகணும்னு சொல்கிறது. குளோபல் சிட்டிசன்னா யார் எங்கே வேணால் போகலாம், யார் என்ன வேணால் பண்ணலாம், ஆனால் ரெக்கார்ட் மட்டும் இருக்கும் குளோபல்னு. தப்பு செஞ்சால் யாராக இருந்தாலும் அவங்க தண்டனை அனுபவிக்கப்படுவாங்க. சிவில் கான்செப்ட் பட் ஆல்மோஸ்ட் இம்பாசிபிள் டு அச்சீவ். இட்ஸ் அ குளோபல் ப்ராப்ளம். Britain's mistake, why divide the country based on religion? If there is no Israel state like today, the world Israel would not exist anywhere. Blame the Romans. Same about Palestine, but Palestine was the only province from Israel's biblical land. This is the first mistake from Britain. They did the same subcontinent in many ways. Many wars. Pakistan demanded to be different religion, not Britain's fault. Okay. We must look and understand Palestine and Israel before World War II to have full truth. In short, we are in the mess because of British Empire mistakes. Right. Why are only people from Tel Aviv invited to speak? Jerusalem is the 10 million Palestinian diaspora, which is a core thing to be considered in any resolution. DW fails to mention the 1937 Peel Commission plan, the first actual two-state solution refused by Arabs as well as pre-1967 occupation of Gaza Strip, West Bank by Egypt and Jordan respectively, without creating Palestinian state. Okay. Very complex. Okay guys, I think that's it from my end. Hope you enjoyed the video. Iran and Israel versus எந்த இடத்துல ஈரான் அண்டு யூஎஸ் கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட் எல்லாம் எங்கே சுற்றி வந்துச்சு, எந்த மாதிரி நியூஸ் ரிப்போர்ட் வச்சுங்கிறத பார்த்தோம். நான் கிரெடிபிள் நினச்சேன் 2 நியூஸ்லேயே ஒரு நியூஸ் வந்து இஸ்ரேலேருந்து ரிப்போர்ட் கூடாதுன்னு பேன் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. இன்னொரு நியூஸு கமெண்ட் செக்ஷனில் போட்டு அடிச்சுன்னுங்கிறாங்க, ஏன்னா அப்படி பேஸ்டாக பண்ணுகிறேன்னு. ஸோ இந்த வார் ஆஃப் நேரட்டிவ்ஸ்க்கு என்ன தான் தீர்வுனா டெஃபினெட்லி ஏ தான் தீர்வு. அட்லீஸ்ட் நீங்கள் குறைஞ்சபட்சம் ஏ கேட்டால் வாட் ஆர் த ரிப்போர்ட்டட் இன்சிடென்ட்ஸ் ஹேப்பன், எந்தெந்த கண்ட்ரி ஹிஸ்டாரிக்கலி எந்தெந்த டைமில் என்னன்னு சொல்லி என்ன வேலிடேஷன் வச்சுக்கிட்டு அவங்களாம் வாருக்கு போனாங்க, அது அப்புறம் எப்படி தீர்வாச்சு, யாருக்கு என்னென்ன பிரச்சனை, என்னென்ன கிரட்ஜ், என்னென்ன பீஃபுங்கிறது அதிகமாக பொறுமையாக இன்னொரு வீடியோவில் கூட சீக்கிரமாக தான் பார்ப்போம். ஹோப் யூ என்ஜாய்ட் அப் டில் நவ் திஸ் நியூஸ் ரியாக்ட். வேறு கிரெடிபிள் நியூஸ் இருந்தால் நியூஸ் சொல்லுங்கள் கமெண்ட் செக்ஷனில், நான் ஆச்சு தான் பார்த்து தெரிஞ்சுக்கிறேன். ஜியோ பாலிட்டிக்ஸ் இஸ் வெரி வெரி மைண்ட் ஃபக்கிங் திங் தட் எவ்ரி ஒன் வாண்ட்ஸ் அ பீஸ். எவ்ரி ஒன் இஸ் அ கோல் ஹார்ட்டட் பீஸ் தான் நான் சொல்லுவேன், ஹூ ஜஸ்ட் வாண்ட் தேர் ஓன் பீஸ். அண்ட் உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது நான் படம் உங்களுக்கு பிடிச்சிருந்ததுன்னா லைக் பண்ணுங்கள். அண்ட் இஃப் ஹேஸ் சம் சஜஷன்ஸ் ப்ரோ இப்படி பண்ணால் நல்லாயிருக்கும், இதை பற்றி ரியாக்ட் பண்ணுங்கள் அப்படின்னு எந்த சஜஷன்ஸ் ஆகும், இன்க்ளூடிங் த கிரிட்டிசிசம், ஜஸ்ட் லெட் மீ நோ த கமெண்ட் செக்ஷன். ஐ வில் பி ரீடிங் ஆல் திஸ் கமெண்ட்ஸ். And if you want to support me, hit that subscribe button. That's the only you can support my community like me. Good to see you. Another video. Until then, bye bye. See you all. Peace out.